This is the new RX100 Mark VII, Sony's new compact that's built for speed. Now before we get started, if you don't have time to watch this full hands-on first look, then of course you can skip ahead to our too long didn't watch section, which just gives you a quick overview of what this camera can do. Also, we didn't have all the specs for this camera at the time of filming. However, Sony have been lovely enough to let us have this sample. So if there's anything you think is missing from this review, please ask us questions. And I'm sure by the time this comes out, we'll have a lot more info for you guys. So what are the headline specifications for the RX100 Mark VII? Well, we start off with the fact that Sony have basically taken a lot of the A9's features and popped them into this. We've now got real-time tracking, a real-time IAF in stills and video. Massive plus for Sony there. We've got a new sensor, a 1-inch type stacked CMOS sensor with a DRAM chip and a Bionz X processor with a front-end LSI, which allows major speed in terms of autofocus and continuous burst. Talking of continuous burst, you can shoot 20 frames per second with AF and AE, which is the same as the A9, incredible. And it's got 357 phase detect points across 68% of the sensor, and it's currently got the world's fastest autofocus system in a 1-inch type fixed lens compact camera. So looking at the specs to start off with, they're pretty impressive. Now we just need to try it out. The first thing I want to try out with the Mark VII is that real-time IAF. So I've put it in 4K, 25p, I've set that up, we've got a camera behind so you can see if it's tracking me, and hopefully it's on my eye. So I'm going to move around and hopefully it will stay on my eye. So we'll try in and out. We'll do a quick one. And then we'll go left to right, nice and close. No one wants to see me that close. Left to right, and I'm going to turn away and back to the camera. Hopefully that's picking me up nice and quickly. Right, now I also want to make sure that real-time IAF tracking works with continuous burst too. So I've set it on continuous burst, I've got the app here so I can see exactly what the RX100 is seeing, and I can set up from over here, and I'm going to walk towards the camera and take a burst shot. Also, it was so easy to set up this app. I normally have a nightmare setting up Wi-Fi with all different cameras. I've got so many to do it with, try it so many times, it's always a nightmare. This, locked on straight away, no problems, didn't keep disconnecting, which I have a lot of the time. And also there's so many controls here. If I hold that up, you can see, it's trying to track my eyes, I've got it on IF, you see guys. So you can zoom in and out here, you can set all your settings, you can do things like, so if I click on high there, you can set all your bracketing, or you can set it on continuous burst, whatever you want. So really good app. Make sure if you've got the RX100 to download that app. However, now we're going to try the continuous IAF with taking pictures. So I'm going to walk towards the camera and take multiple bursts. Oh, it's doing it. Oh, it's doing it. Whoa. So it's finished buffering, so I'm just going to expand that folder. It saves them into folders when you do this sort of continuous shooting, and you can do continuous playback, just gives you an idea of what you've shot. So here we can see what I should be able to see on the memory card. And then you can just make sure you've got the sequence you need. Oh dear, what a face. And this is what it looks like, the actual full res images. So while we're out in the wilds of the English countryside, there's some nice pretty flowers here with lots of bugs and bees and little insects on. So I've just stuck it in the scene mode on the RX100. I don't normally do that, but it does have a pretty good macro mode on this. I've popped up the viewfinder so I can see what I'm doing a little bit more, and I'll get a few shots here. Had a bit of a nightmare for a second there. Spent the last 10 minutes trying to get all the ants out of my bag because I didn't realise I'd put it over there on an ant's nest. Ideal. So we're set up and we're ready to go. I've got the Rode Wireless Go on that bracket there, so hopefully you can hear me nice and clearly. It doesn't look like I'm peeking using the screen. It also looks like the eye autofocus is keeping my eye dead in focus there, so hopefully that's what it's going to look like when I get it on a big screen. The only problem we have is this. it's a very, very bright day. Now obviously I'm running a 50th of a second, so I'm shooting 4K 25p. F-stop, I'm going to have to raise it because I'm on ISO 100 now. I can't get it any lower, so I'm going to have quite a high f-stop, which is slightly annoying. I quite like running a low f-stop with this sort of thing, but obviously I can't put a filter on the front of this lens, and it doesn't have anything like a built-in ND, like say the G5X2 from Canon or the G7X Mark III. So it's going to run quite bright. We're going to have to use quite a high f-stop. So I've managed to find a spot of shade so I can actually talk to you without just being a cloud of white, basically. The maximum aperture you can be at on this camera is f11, which obviously makes shooting in bright sunlight like this when you can't put an ND filter on a little bit harder, but I've managed to find some shade with my new pals. Say hello, guys. All right, Steve. So the major improvements when it comes to video on the Mark VII are the steady shot mode. So we now have active steady shot, which if I move around, hopefully I'm looking very, very smooth as I walk. That is oh, sorry guys. So that's ideal. The next one we've got is that mic input. So obviously both of those things really, really good for vloggers. In terms of the actual resolution you can get in video, so you can get 4K 25p, or you can do HD 100 frames per second in PAL. You've also got that high frame rate mode that Sony does, where you can shoot 1000 frames per second. So you've got a few options there. Shame we haven't got 4K 60, but they have managed to keep the size down, and I could imagine there might be some issues with overheating if they had too much going on. So it's a balancing act. I think they've made some good improvements and really made this camera more accessible for people like vloggers and YouTubers. So unfortunately, after making my way for quite a long walk in this heat, I now have to head back to the car as the battery is a flashing red. So I need to put some juice in this thing via the micro USB port, not USB-C. But at least we can USB charge, right? We have power, we are charged, the light is nice and low in the sky now, so it's a lot less harsh. And we've got one more feature that I really want to try out on this camera. So on the Mark VII, you can do something called single burst shooting. We've got quite little information about this, but it basically means that you can shoot at the speed of 90 frames per second by the looks of it. And by clicking that once, you get 7 RAW/JPEGs. So it basically means that in way under a second, you can get a really interesting set of images that sort of slot between what you would be able to get if you were shooting at the 20 frames per second continuous burst. Now obviously 20 frames per second you can go on a lot longer, so you capture more, but this should capture a very specific moment. So Sony used the example of like a tennis ball hitting a racket, that decisive moment. So I've got some cans of lemonade which we're going to shake up basically, and we're going to see just how effective this is. So we'll try the single burst shooting a couple of times, we'll try the 20 frames continuous shooting, and then we'll also do a slow-mo video too. Okay, so the can's all shook up and ready. Jamie's ready on the camera. And 3, 2, 1, go. So we're going to try that again. Jamie's going to come a little bit closer in case it's just as pathetic as it was last time. Right, and 1, 2, 3. So it's time for a fresh can because this one's now flat, and we're going to try 20 frames per second continuous burst. So right, so we're all set up with the high frame rate recording. We're doing 250 frames per second, which outputs a video in camera of 25 frames per second, so you can put it straight into your workflow. You can do up to 1000 frames per second, and you can shoot that at 50p. So if you wanted to, you can knock it to 2000 frames per second afterwards. So we're not going to do that because you do lose quite a lot of quality. So we're just going to stick to 250, which is 5 times slow motion. So I'm going to shake this up. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. You get it?
Yeah.
I hope so. It's in my eyes. So one more cool feature whilst the slow-mo of me getting soaked is processing. The Mark VII now has a feature that basically recognises portrait video. So anybody who's into their Instagram, does a lot of stories, it sort of goes back to that pro vlogger audience again. Anyone who's doing Instagram TV, it's a perfect camera for using with that. Just makes your life so much easier because you can compose with the camera rather than having to cut it down afterwards. So who's this camera for? Well, photo enthusiasts and advanced vloggers, people who want great quality in something that's travel sized. What does it compare to? Probably the RX100 Mark VI, the Canon G5X Mark II and the Canon G7X Mark III. Why should you care? Well, incredible AF performance, great continuous frame rates, and fantastic features if you do like to vlog. What do we think? We think it's a pocketable, really good camera, properly advanced little travel compact. I've really enjoyed testing this today. Sony have really picked a target audience and run with it. You can see it in the features of the camera. Are there things that I would like to have seen? 4K 60p, for example? Yes. However, the features that it has in it is really pushed towards that target audience of photo enthusiasts and advanced vloggers. The mic input, the advanced stabilization, obviously the flip up screen, all the normal stuff we get in the RX100 series, but little things like the AF, the IAF, real-time tracking, amazing, so good, and it worked so well earlier when I was doing that vlogging. But also the high-speed video is fantastic. Being able to get all of that lemonade spraying up, that looked great in continuous frame rate, the single burst mode and slow-mo video. There's a lot of options with this camera, and they've managed to keep it pocketable. Every single time Sony bring one of these out, they manage to keep it pocketable and they still fit in more features. It's a really good little compact. Now, if you need to know more about it, there's loads of information on the website. You can give us a call, send us an email, pop onto our social channels, have a look at our blog, or of course, you can rewatch this video because it's brilliant. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications so you can find out everything we're doing and all the new gear that's coming around.